Hey guys, welcome back. This is Library of Orthunk, LOTR TCG, with another top 10 video for you guys. So this is going to close out our top 10 on the movie block. This time we're looking at shadow cards, and we're looking at shadow cards that are not minions. So this is going to bring our series to a close, and hopefully just by watching these 4 top 10 videos, you can actually get a really good idea of the meta of the movie block format and some of the cards and strategies that you're going to be facing. So let's get right to it. At number 10, we have the Seasoned Leader. So the Seasoned Leader is just a great card. You're going to see this primarily in Southron Archery. You're also going to see it in Southron Mumox, where this is either going to be on a Mumok commander or it's going to be on a Desert Lord, of course. And you can just put this on and get additional exertions. So that's what's so great about the Desert Lord. You can just get additional power off of that. With the Mumok commander, I'm blanking on the name of the condition, but there's a condition that allows you to exert to add like 1 to your strength. And then again, you're giving yourself enduring. So exerting yourself is actually very good with this. And the cool thing too here is in these decks that, generate a lot of threats, remove a threat to play a Southron condition from your discard pile. So the key with this, if you haven't played it, is stacking multiple Seasoned Leaders. So this doesn't, bearer must be a Southron, but there's no limit on this. It's not unique. It's not like a weapon that you can only bear 1. So your leader can get more and more seasoned, meaning you play this one, it goes to the discard pile. The next one you play, you remove a threat and dig your second one out. So you've got like a double Seasoned Leader then at that point. And it can really just start to get out of control later in the game when you're multiple stacking Seasoned Leaders. So so that is, like I said, highly impactful in those decks with the right synergies. Very strong card, the Seasoned Leader. In at our number 10 spot. At our number 9 spot, another yellow man card, and that is Small Hope. So Small Hope really is what puts the Beasterling strategy on the map, because previously it'd be very difficult to get 2 burdens on your opponent. Versus this turns that on its head and says, basically, your opponent will always have 2 burdens. So its effect is if you cannot spot 2 burdens, exert an Easterling to add a burden, just as a maneuver action. So again, like I said, this is always just going to ensure that you have 2 burdens, which is what's necessary to activate your pole arms primarily, and make sure that your Easterlings don't take any wounds. And then it also does double as a pump if you start to get multiples of these stacked up. So very impactful card that really makes the Beasterling deck work, the Small Hope. Then coming in at number 7, we have one of everyone's favorite cards, the Goblin Armory. So Goblins are on a bit of a downturn in the movie block format, mainly because they haven't had any cards added to their deck since set 3. So they basically had a huge dry spell, but it's still so good that it's a competitive deck still in the movie block format. And what better card to symbolize that than the Goblin Armory, the original 0-cost support area condition that you can discard to prevent a wound. Just so good. And obviously add Twilight as well with your weapons. So definitely one of the cards when you think of Lord of the Rings TCG, you think of Goblin Armory. So that comes in at our number 7 spot. Our number 8 spot. Number 7 will be a very similar type of card, and that is Hides. So as Goblin Armory is to our Moria Swarm deck, Hides is to our Dunlin deck. That is that it really is the single condition that makes it function. And while this one does not cost 0, it does have the added effect of when you play it, you draw a card. So replacing itself is a huge thing that Hides does for itself. And basically, if a Dunland man is about to take a wound, remove 2 or discard this possession to prevent that wound. So this is so good because it allows you to convert your Twilight into wound prevention. So if your opponent is flooding the Twilight pool, all they're doing is giving you protection for your Dunland men. And then when things get tight and you really need to win a skirmish to control a site, you can always pitch the Hides if you have to. If that's going to give you the site control, that's what's going to do it. I never noticed these were bones on here. Somehow I have always missed that, but that is super cool. Neat looking possession. And that is hides in at our number 7 spot. Moving then to our number 6 spot, we have another deck enabler, this time for our Corsairs, in the Black Sails of Umbar. So this is a huge card because it does 2 things, really. It does cost reduction, but it also does, well, 3 things, let's say. It does cost reduction, it does discard pile recursion, and it does potential swarming, because the card that you remove from your discard pile, you get to play at Twilight cost -X. So if you get one of these really stacked up, and you're playing a Castamere from your discard pile for free, that's just the height of insanity. But obviously you can use this to recur Marauders to get rid of your opponent's possessions, or you can just reuse it to recur small guys to do a swarm type strategy. It's just such an impactful card. When you play it, you get 1 token, but then you can always have many different ways between Plunderers and Castamere and other cards, plenty of ways to load up tokens on these bad boys. And then when the time is right, as a shadow action, you can just dig things out of your discard pile. So that's just so good. The Black Sails of Umbar coming in at number 6. Then at number 5, no, this isn't the exact same card that we just looked at. Despite Decipher's failure to have any sort of image difference here. I mean, maybe there's some little explosions in the background, but basically the ship floated a little farther down the river and then they snapped another picture of it. But either way, this is the Ships of Great Draught. The importance of this is really any Raider Men deck can use this for cycling. So that's why it's so good, is Raider Men are very good in this format. And this just lets you remove a threat or discard a Raider card from hand to add a Raider token here. So this is so versatile in that you can just pitch whatever shadow cards you want to really help your deck just cycle incredibly well. And then you can always get them back in the regroup phase, back to the top of your draw deck right before you regroup your hand. So it's just an incredibly versatile card. This is another one of those cards where you look at it and you're like, oh, this is a decent card. But there's a reason why you play a couple copies of this really in every Raider strategy to cycle your deck, because it's so good, especially if you're relying on a fellowship that needs to cycle and needs to get through to draw cards. You know, you can then just really feel free to discard over and over, discard your Raider cards so that you can, you know, refill your hand with something new. Obviously, that's sometimes done at the expense of your ability to provide a good stopping defense. So, you know, use that carefully. But, you know, just such a good card because of the hand control that it gives you, you know, for any Raider strategy. So that is number 5, the Ships of Great Draught. Moving on then to number 4, this is emblematic of our Ninja Golem deck, and that is Promise Keeping. You know, again, you look at this card and you're like, man, why does that cost 4 and be unique? That is just atrocious. And I don't disagree with you that that's statistically absurd, but there's a reason why it is that way, and that is because its ability is so good. Each time a companion takes a wound during a skirmish involving a Golem minion, exert that companion. So I've talked about this when I've talked about Ninja Golem, but basically this is so good because it's each time a companion takes a wound. So if they're wounding for losing the skirmish, that's a wound. If they're getting wounded for they stole it, that's a wound. If there's damage +1, that's a wound. So anytime you can end up getting, you know, 2-3 wounds with this is just sick. And then if you can make your Golem fierce and give them another 2 more, it is just absolutely crazy because you get to exert the companion. It's not make the opponent exert a companion. It's you, the shadow player, exert a companion, which means you choose where all those exertions go. You can't kill someone to death, but you can get them right up to it and get them exhausted. And you just get to pick from the top on down, kill, you know, exhaust the best one, go down to the next one. And so just absurd, the buildup of these wounds over time. And obviously the other key thing to note with this synergistically is that Shelob, of course, is a Golem companion. So every time Shelob gets involved in a skirmish as well, you're going to get those exertions. So coming in our number 4 spot is Promise Keeping. Then our number 3 spot here on the list is Grond, Hammer of the Underworld. This is such an essential strategy for besiegers or other Sauron orc strategies, but basically this allows you to play a minion to add tokens here, and then you can remove X tokens to discard any Free People's card that's not a companion with Twilight cost X. So the crazy thing with this can get rid of artifacts. You know, I was talking about how hard it would be to get rid of an Anduril or an Eyegloss. This is your ticket to do that. So this is the one card that can really put a wrench in no matter what your opponent is doing, whatever that key card is that's bothering you, you can get rid of it. And if you do this right, you typically do not want to discard this possession. You typically want to discard a Sauron minion. And so then you can just do it over and over again. Play minions, add tokens, discard the minions to discard a Free People's card. This Grond is just an absolute menace and a super cool looking card, but absolute menace. So that's why that gets our number 3 spot. Number 2. Slightly more versatile of a card is the Red Wrath. And when I say versatile, I mean in the number of different decks it can be used. Obviously, Grond can only be used in a Sauron deck. This can only be used in a Raider deck, but there's a lot more variety of decks playing Raiders. It's certainly going to be just amazing in a Beasterling deck when you combine it with the Raider Bow and the Ambush 5 to essentially play it for free and get a double wound on a companion. And again, this is wound twice. So this is like, I like to think of this as like super hate. Obviously the 5 cost is absurd, but the decks that are going to be playing this, like I said, you're going to get Ambush 5 off of a Raider Bow, or else you're going to be playing this with Castamere with the Raider Halberd, and the Raider Halberd has the ability on it, Exert to add 2. So you can just, you know, do the same kind of thing with Castamere, exert, 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 give yourself 6 Twilight, play this for free. So absolutely absurd when you get already big, powerful minions, you know, like a Castamere or like a Beasterling, and suddenly they're just wounding a companion twice. They're probably already winning the skirmish too, so that's giving you 3 wounds. That's generally going to take out most anything just outright in a skirmish. So there's just nothing your opponent can do to protect themselves in that way. And that's what makes Red Wrath so crazy to play against, so impactful, is that when someone's just whipping 3 wounds at you, and these are wounds, these are not exertions, that is just crazy and crazy difficult to keep your companions alive. And then, you know, you combine a Red Wrath with something like a Bold Men and Grim, which makes you, you know, discard another companion. You can just decimate fellowships with this card. So that's why that gets our number 2 spot, the Red Wrath. And the number 1, I think, should be fairly non-controversial as well. Again, we're rating this off of impactfulness and versatility, and just the sheer number of decks that this card appears in is insane. And that is Captured by the Ring. This is your most expensive common foil in Lord of the Rings, and for good reason. 0 cost. Play Golem from your draw deck or discard pile, which means you always get to pick the optimal Golem for the situation, or potentially you just play 1 Golem in your whole deck and then just play 4 of this to keep recurring it, bringing it out of the deck and then bringing it back out of the discard pile. And when you do that, you get to add a threat. So it's good for people that want to add threats. It's good for people that want to get, you know, Golem Dark as Darkness for wounds. It's good for Ninja Golem to get your variety of Golems. So splashable, because Golem is so splashable. And even, you know, beyond the movie block, this is still essential to many strategies and expanded. So this is just again, just powerhouse of a card for deck building. On its face, again, you know, may look innocuous, maybe just like, oh, well, I could just play another Golem. And it's like, well, no, this gives you the exact Golem you want. This gives you an added threat. And, you know, like I said, gives you that versatility of pulling from the deck or discard pile. it is just the be-all, end-all of the Golem strategy and the Golem splash ability. So just an absolute fantastic Lord of the Rings card here in Captured by the Ring. So that's going to take our number 1 spot as number 1 minion card that is not, number 1 shadow card that is not a minion. So let's lay out our cards again here with our top 10 ranking. Again, like I said, I really like these top 3, I think, stand alone. And then, the rest of them could be somewhat variable about the order you like these in. Might just depend on the order of how good you think the respective decks are. Obviously, these are all tier 1 decks, though, that rely on these cards that you see before you. So this is a really nice snapshot of what are some of the most deadly shadow cards that I am going to face in the movie block format. Again, not minions, but other non-minion shadow cards. What do I need to be aware of, and what are the key cards that my opponent's going to be playing out of their deck? This is a really good snapshot of that for you guys. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video series. I'd be happy to do more top 10s. I obviously know the movie block format very well and love the format. And so always like to hear feedback from you guys about what you find more interesting. So hopefully you found this top 10 series interesting. And again, like I said, we tried to, these are cool cards that look cool, but we weren't picking it based off of the coolest foil art or the most famous card. It was literally just based on this is the most impactful cards for gameplay is kind of how we tried to do this top 10 series. But because that's kind of always been the focus of our channel is the top tier decks and the playability in the deck text. So that's what we've really chosen to focus on with these lists. But let me know if you have any comments, any suggestions for future videos or future top 10 lists. I'd love to hear them. Please subscribe, and continue to follow along, and stay tuned for more videos.